All right, another hour and another batch of guests. We are back. And we have got a full crew here. These people y'all are going to be some trouble. I can sense it. You especially. I don't know. We're joined by Kirk Scott from Nintendo. How you doing, sir?
Great.
Fantastic.
So far, so good.
Yeah. And of course, you're representing the Nindies.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I understand you've brought some Nindies with you here.
That's us.
Yes.
Yes. Introduce from Hollow Knight. Is it William and Ari?
Yeah.
You got it.
Yep.
Okay, great.
That's us.
And we got Nick representing Killer Queen in the back there.
Hello.
Hello. And on the Overcooked team, Devious.
Phil.
Ollie and Phil.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I played some Overcooked 2 a little while ago, and then played a little bit more today.
Oh, yeah? How'd you get on?
I did fine.
Sounds offensive.
Yeah. What are you playing?
I got 3 stars on a couple of levels.
Yeah.
What did you hear? What did you hear? The changes in Overcooked 2, was it the sort of thing where immediately after the release of Overcooked 1, it was like, what if you could bring the plate to the food instead of the food to the plate? What if you could throw the food? Was it just like did those ideas kind of come quickly on the heels of Overcooked 1? Or
That's been the whole development process, really. Like,
Yeah.
every time we introduce a new mechanic, something would come off the back of it. And there's just a point with Overcooked 1 where it's just like, you just can't add any more. We got to stop. This needs to be released now. You know, we're running out of money. It needs to.
Sure.
We need to cut it off.
Every time you see players play a game, you want to change it just a little bit. It's like, oh no, that could be better. And like, we definitely want to do that, but we haven't got time. And that was where we sort of started with like a list of problems and a list of things. We were like, that'd be cool.
cool.
Yeah. Just kept going and going.
The changes seem really solid, like out of the gate. It's that initial feeling of just like, oh
Good.
man, this changes everything.
Yeah. That's good. I would like to
It's
hear
like
that.
it's like I'm less nervous because I can do these 3 more things, but then also way more nervous because of how it can ratchet up from there.
Right, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Cool.
Every little mechanic seems to do that. We're always thinking about like, okay, so how does this change the way that people interact when they're playing it? So
Yeah.
it's nice to hear that some of that is hitting home.
It's looking cool. So
Good. Yeah.
with Hollow Knight, I mean that's out.
Yeah,
That happened.
surprise.
That's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering for ages why we were in LA.
Right.
And then the game came out.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
Oh,
Great.
okay.
Yeah.
Is that how it works? Just Nintendo handles all of it. You're just like, oh yeah, just take the game.
We did a little bit.
Okay.
But
They do the hard part.
Yeah.
no, it's great. We've obviously had to keep it quiet.
Mhm.
So we've been.
That's the hard part.
That
That is
it.
no fun.
But
also,
it's
it's-
cool.
I mean, there's a lot of talk about secrets. Since I feel like Killer Queen ended up being the game that was in some ways the most secret.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it ended up not being one there towards the
Yeah, it was really like when it leaked, it was crazy. It was just like my phone was like insane.
Yeah.
It was,
So if people,
what is this? Why is this? Blah,
What
blah.
happened? Oh,
what
God.
happened? What's
Yeah.
wrong with
Did
you?
do this? Did you leak this? Yeah. But man, that's so. I am gonna. It's in the Indiecade area at the show, right? Is there?
No, it's in the Nintendo booth.
It is in the Nintendo. Okay, great. So I am gonna seek it out because I have been hearing people talk about Killer Queen for some time now. But how many arcade machines were eventually made? Was it?
Are still being made.
Okay.
We have about 100 out in the
Okay.
wild right now.
Yeah. And I have yet to encounter one. And the people who have one or have encountered them is like, man, you gotta see Killer Queen.
Have you been to Brewcade?
I have not.
You should go.
Yeah. So it is very exciting to see it coming to a bevy of devices and be like, okay, this I can handle. I already have too many arcade machines in my house. I can't get a huge one. It just won't work out. My wife will kill me.
Yeah.
So having it come to something that is decidedly easier to hide,
Smaller.
and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, no, we're super excited about it coming out for home, and especially the Switch is really kind of a great opportunity.
Yeah. Kirk, it seems like that's something that a ton of devs are saying, that the Switch has just been a fantastic opportunity for them. And it seems like, going back to, prior to the Switch's launch, I started hearing, hey, Nintendo's getting serious about indie devs. Nintendo is out there, they're making this stuff happen.
Right.
What's that been like?
Well, we're flattered, honestly, for these guys to actually really want to come to Switch. I think it's a great device for people to play their favorite indie games.
Mm-hmm.
So indies kind of gravitate toward that. Being able to play this thing on the plane, play Hollow Knight on the plane, it's just a great experience. And you don't lose any progression. You just kind of keep going with your games.
Yeah.
So we're happy about it.
Yeah,
And,
it's been
fun.
It's been cool, and I guess would you? This was something that came up during the Wii U when there were definitely indie games on the Wii and the Wii U and stuff like that. There was an element of like, you'd have developers say like, I never thought that I would be able to put a game out on a Nintendo platform. Do any of you feel like that's part of it? I mean, the nostalgia and the history of that company, like it's a pretty, obviously there are a lot more games on the Switch now than there were, back in the NES days or something. But is there still that element? Is there still that feeling of just like, man, that's Nintendo?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Nintendo's been around for a very long time, and it has that kind of nostalgia. Because a lot of us grew up playing Nintendo games. So
Yeah, I think particularly like local multiplayer games. Like I remember playing so many of those on N64, for example, and being able to bring our own local multiplayer game and online multiplayer.
We grew up playing NES games, and at the age that we were playing those games, we didn't even know how these things were made. They're just like a magic bloody thing that appears on a screen.
Yeah.
And now, it's really a full circle to go to a point where we understand how they're made, and then we're making them ourselves, and then we're working with the people that were providing those, what were almost like magic experiences when you're a child.
Yeah.
You're clueless about
This
the process.
This is gonna age me a bit, but I actually did Game Boy Advance games back in the day.
Cool.
And I'm still super excited that we're coming out for Switch, and I think like being on a Nintendo platform really does mean something.
Which GBA games?
Yeah.
I did some stuff for Scholastic, so it's not anything you've probably played.
Like a little like the Math Blaster or some of the.
It was I Spy.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
All right. Cool.
Very cool. And for Nintendo, really, it's just reaching out to these developers with these amazing games, these indie guys, and really kind of dropping that veil, right? Dropping that whole mystery and saying, we'd love to have your game on the platform.
Yeah.
Right? It's just that simple. And then helping them through the process, which, the process on Switch is fairly straightforward. These guys can speak to that. There's really no mystery. It's just game development.
Yeah, and obviously, indie games have become a much bigger deal, or more prevalent on consoles and handheld devices and such, over the last 5-10 years. It used to seem that like that was just impenetrable until downloading games on consoles became something that was a little more viable. Does it feel like a very, you're out there kind of securing deals and kind of making this stuff happen, right? So is it a very competitive thing? Do you feel like you're kind of fighting tooth and nail for the games that you get? I mean, or is it more like, hey, let's make sure there are games on this platform?
To a certain degree. I mean, there's some competitive nature to it. I mean,
Sure.
it's business.
Yeah.
We all know each other in the industry, so, we're all kind of friends.
Chris Charlotte was here like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that it's all about making sure that you get kind of the games that fit the console best, and just having conversations with the developers and dropping that mystery veil of being on Nintendo platforms.
When you say like finding the games that fit the best, are there specifics that you like? Are there specific things about games, generally speaking, that you think make them a great fit for Switch? Because obviously, there are Twitter bots out there saying, "Put this game on Switch, put this game on Switch," and everyone's out there clamoring, for like, "Hey, is this game coming to Switch? Is this game coming to Switch?" Is there
Those aren't
something
bots; those are real people.
Well, one of them's a bot. I know one of them is a bot.
One of them's a bot.
It uses our database to generate the names.
Well, I mean, the ability to play anywhere and have like multiple users kind of fits right in line with what we did with Killer Queen. So he can tell you that I've been talking to him for a few years and seen him at shows and just really kind of just starting the conversation, the relationship to get there. And here we are today.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Can you describe Killer Queen for people who may not have seen it just yet? I'd hate to just say like, hey, give me a. But
So the new game is Killer Queen Black, which is a variation on the classic arcade game. It's not exactly the same. This game is 4v4. There's a gold team and a blue team, and there's 3 ways to win. There's economic victory, which is fill your base with food. There's military victory, which is kill the enemy queen 3 times. And then there's snail victory, which is ride a giant snail to a flag,
That's my deal.
which sounds easy, but is incredibly hard.
Well, snails are slow.
Snails are slow, and there's a lot of people trying to kill you while you're on the snail.
Yeah. And then it looks, is it Joust-esque in a sense?
It's less Joust-esque than the arcade game.
Okay.
So in this version of the game, we decided to kind of make a lot of modifications to the game design to optimize it for consoles. You can't get the same kind of tap rate on a controller, like humanly. So that opened up a lot of opportunities for us to introduce new weapons, like there's a laser, there's a Morning Star, and some other goodies that we haven't quite revealed yet.
Cool.
So that part of the game makes it tactically very different than the arcade game, but really interesting in a new kind of way.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. You mentioned that, obviously, the games don't just materialize on other platforms. What was it like? Hollow Knight's been out on the PC for some time. Bringing it to Switch, what did that entail? Did you find yourself like, was it a lot of work to kind of like, hey, we're used to this PC. It might have a whole lot of power at its disposal, like making it run on the Switch and optimize it. Was there a lot of work involved?
Yeah, there was a bit of work. There was a bit of work involved. Hollow Knight, it was like our first game.
Yeah, so we weren't that used to the PC.
So like even the
the
PC wasn't like, oh, this is easy. We worked on the PC version and released it and stuff, and it worked pretty well. And then we spent a bit of time optimizing that, and then when we moved over to getting it ready on the Switch, we obviously the last thing we wanted was for anyone's experience on the Switch to be like less than the best PC experience. So it had to be 60 frames per second. We had to have the loading times like really really low, and that did involve kind of going back and like redoing a lot of the game's code, which is kind of my fault because I didn't really know how to code when we started. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it worked out in the end. And now we have a game on PC and on Switch that is actually like a normal person's game, like what other people release.
Yeah, it's because
and not held together by string.
Yeah, we learned heaps, and everything else we make, we're super keen to keep going, and everything else will be nice.
I was gonna say, I imagine like going through the process, maybe you'd kind of know what to plan for.
Sure.
You do this process once.
Yeah.
So that's all, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Knocked all the mistakes off the list, and now it's all good. 100% from now on.
So are you now thinking about like, hey, what's the next thing, or is it still about kind of like, okay, can we maybe bring Hollow Knight to some other spots, or?
We think about all that stuff.
Yeah,
I think like game development is long, right? Especially games like this, big games. You spend 2 years on it. We thought up 10 years of games that we would love to make in 1 year of game development. So we can just keep going, and that's great. And I mean, it's just, what do? We just make stupid characters and draw them on a board and put them in a world, and then eventually, that's it. This is like 50% of our development process.
I'm going to download Game Maker when I get home. And this whole thing's going.
Watch out, because it's not that far.
I'll be calling you. I got a thing here, man.
No problem.
Great.
No problem.
Yeah.
Solidarity.
Sure. I don't even remember what most of that stuff is at this point. There were a lot of press conferences.
The heavy metal-esque.
Yeah, it really does.
So Kirk, here at the show, is it a lot of meeting devs that you already have a relationship with, or there's a lot of first-time meetings? So it seems like as the Switch grows in popularity, I imagine only more and more people are going to want to like beat down your door and be like, hey, we got games.
Sure. It's a little bit of both, actually, a lot of both. New devs and, just kind of continuing relationships. What's next? You just ask these guys, what's next? It's a lot of that. We're excited. Once we are working with the developer who's released games, we want to make sure that they have a continued great experience on the platform.
Yeah.
So what's next is important for us.
And in terms of just like what Nintendo tends to, I guess, every deal is probably going to be a little bit different, but have you ever found yourself like saying, hey, we're going to like, maybe we want to publish this, maybe we want to bring this and pick it up that way? Or is it really just about like, hey, we're going to, provide the devs what they need to succeed?
It's all about providing them with what they need to succeed. Yeah.
Cool.
I think the publishing is another vision.
Yeah.
So let's kind of like make sure that
Just
everyone's happy.
Start your own rogue publishing division on the side, man. That's what everybody's doing.
I'm doing that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
No, it's been exciting. I mean, you know, like, how do you feel about the stuff you're seeing? Is it just like, hey, there's just like tremendous new ideas out there, or is it 1,000 battle royale style games?
Well, luckily with the indies, it's where basically all of the heart is.
Mm-hmm.
It's where all of the passion is, and it's where all the creativity is. So it's great. Everything's new, you know? I mean, I could go to shows and just see something just blows my mind.
Yeah, and then just
never seen it before.
Yeah,
and you'll never see that in AAA games.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
You're right. I get the sense from talking to a few people, kind of looking to make, you know, larger projects, that there's maybe a little bit of paralysis out there in terms of not only like what you were talking about with creativity and some of those lines, but I think like just on the business side, Fortnite has cast a long shadow that says like. A lot that maybe there's some publishers out there saying things like, "Oh, we want one of those,"
Right.
Or there's other publishers out there saying like, "We don't want anything like that,"
Right.
But maybe we do,
Right.
and that it's led to some uncertainty out there amongst some developers and publishers for sure. Some people signing deals. Do you get the impression that maybe it's well, I guess, you know, you're talking to indie devs, it seems like there's always something cool and new. But
Always.
do you get the impression that maybe there's just a little bit of, have you seen any of that kind of hesitance out there?
Not really, because a lot of the indies, like I've used like the game Celeste as an example. I mean, it was an amazing project for that team, and that game is all about their personal experiences.
Right.
And it's a, you know, small team, so
Of course. Yeah.
it's a passion project, and you don't get those with the AAAs. So I don't think you'll see that too much.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. With Overcooked, you know, you mentioned just kind of coming up with ideas that you can't fit into the existing game. Overcooked 2's out, is it August?
That's right, August 7th, yeah.
So do you already have a bunch of ideas you've cut from this game that you're like, next time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things didn't quite work, and we're like, there's definitely a way of making that work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and try stuff. It's the nice thing about being small is that you just get to try stuff and put it in front of people and be like, oh no, that didn't work. Oh, we'll do something else.
Yeah, that's it. When you scrap an idea, it's not like there's 20 people who are going to be completely heartbroken because they just spent months and months working on something. It's just like, we don't like it. Okay, it's gone.
Yeah, I think that's the real strength of being indies. You don't have to worry about like the 20 people you have to keep going. You can just be like, no, we're willing to put our lives on the line about like this and try this.
And we can procrastinate a lot more, you know. We can sort of go off and do something else. It's not like a 20-person animation team that are like, so what should we be doing while you're over there just like playing with toys or whatever you're doing to try and come up with ideas?
Yeah. And how do you find yourself like getting those ideas in front of people? Do you just kind of go with your gut and keep it within the team, or do you have like kind of a trusted network of, I know some devs have networks of like other devs they're friends with, they're like, hey, I'm just going to shoot you a build, can you just like check this out and make sure we're not nuts? Or do you bring people in for like more formal testing? Or
it's pretty informal, but we do like to get the game in front of people, and preferably not devs actually, because devs tend to come up with solutions to problems rather than just like. What I love is when you show it to like random members of the public and they play it and just like, I'm bored, this is rubbish, and you're like, oh.
Kids are great because they'll do that.
Oh, that's fun.
They'll be like, oh no, your game's not fun. And be like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
you enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh no.
I know you're not lying because you're like 7.
Right.
I was a really good liar at 7.
That's when you start lying.
Yeah, that's when I
7,
truly got good and never stopped. How about with Killer Queen? I mean, you know, this game being with Killer Queen Black being a fairly different thing. Is some of that
But our
based on?
process is the same from a design perspective.
Yeah.
We're all about iterating constantly, and so it was a real challenge on this game because we wanted to keep it secret for as long as we possibly could. So with Arcade, we were just like, yeah, come play our game, blah blah, and like. With this, we were making people sign NDAs and like, you know, it was a little bit different, but you know, more of the same in a way too. Just constantly iterating. Every version was new, different, and just trying to find what could be really fun about playing Killer Queen on a home version was kind of an interesting challenge.
Did some of that come from just kind of feedback to the Arcade release? Were there things like coming out of that? Or I guess like, do you consider the Arcade release done, or
oh
would there
no,
be
it's
things?
never done.
Yeah, I was gonna say
we just released a patch last Friday.
Okay, yeah. So then I guess would when you look at Killer Queen Black, is that something where you're like, oh, maybe some of these changes would be something we would consider? I mean, you talk about things like tap rate and stuff that would actually,
Sure. I mean, there's
specific to the
always
platform, but
I mean, there's like 4 versions of Killer Queen. And there's like Killer Queen the field game, Killer Queen the arcade game. There's a tactics game that we're working on, and then there's Killer Queen Black. So it all kind of cross-pollinates in a lot of different ways.
yeah.
And we can't. A lot of it is just kind of right under the surface of consciousness. So yes, it does cross-pollinate,
Yeah.
but how exactly that happens, I'm not quite sure.
Sure. It's just when it feels right, or if it happens, it happens.
If
You look
it
back
happens,
and
it
go, oh,
happens.
that's because I did this. Okay. Yeah.
And what's interesting too is like with this game, we're working with another team. So we're working with these guys out of Chicago, Liquidbit, who've been amazing. They wrote like fantastic networking code, which we wouldn't.
Cool.
I mean, that was a big part of the reason why we didn't want to come home, was because we knew networking was going to be a big challenge, and we knew that we didn't want to release a home version without networking. So they really stepped up and made that possible, which was great.
And then obviously, I mean, the Switch being something that you can get a lot of local multiplayer in.
Sure.
Are you setting up rooftop parties for this? Are you getting things in the kickstands and all this
hope
other
so.
stuff? And
Yeah, I mean, I hope players will, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it'll
it'll be awesome.
I imagine that's been like a really cool part of getting out there and kind of pitching the Switch to people, is just the nature of the device itself.
Absolutely.
Like, do you see a lot of devs that have specific ideas that are just like, hey, we have found creative uses for just the nature of the Switch itself that
All
they
the
couldn't
time.
really do elsewhere?
All the time, yeah. And as a matter of fact, with Killer Queen, that was one of the things that was like, okay, we have a game that's great for the couch, right? Let's get this thing on Switch. Let's talk to them about it and get it going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, that's cool. With Hollow Knight, that's how did you find your process? I mean, kind of first time writing all this other stuff. Were there like sanity checks of just like, we need to get someone in here and just take a look at this and just take a look at this?
We kind of left that as late as we could. We kind of wanted the game to feel as complete as it could before we got other people to play it.
Yeah, that's true.
That felt pretty important.
Yeah, we only get like one impression from each of these people.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
especially the close people that are going to end up testing it. And we just want to think, in the two of us, we think this is exactly the game we want. Like, this is the game we want to play.
Right.
Then we give it to these people and they say, hell no, you got to fix this and this and this. But at least we're close. And at
Yeah,
least
yeah.
at least
Yeah, as
they can
close as
see
you
our
can.
intent.
Yeah. And it's not like, not many people had even played the game to completion when we released it. It was like, what, 5, 6?
5, 6, something.
Maybe. So yeah, it's pretty important that that those few people were going into something like that was pretty much the game.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Did any of them come back with any pieces of feedback where you're just like, absolutely not. You're violating our whole vision. Just get out of my face. I can't even. I don't even want to hear what you're saying. It's such a bad idea.
It's generally pretty
That
good.
was pretty good. One guy got super stressed because this is a game about getting lost.
Yep.
Like that's inherently the idea. It's like a classic, like Metroid style. And he was so stressed and he was freaking out. And I was like, William, is this a problem? What are we doing? Anyway, then eventually I asked him like, oh, what do you think of these other games? Do you like Mega Man? Do you like Metroid?
Shovel Knight?
Do you like Shovel Knight? And he was like, oh, no, I don't like any of those games. Nah, they're all terrible. And then I was like, whew, all right, we're good. We're good.
There's your
Just
answer.
it.
Yeah.
And release.
Oh, great. Yeah. I don't necessarily, obviously, there's going to be some things you're going to keep a little close here. So, but do you find yourself taking a lot of pitches from people who want to use Nintendo IP? Is that something that like is kind of in your, would that be in your purview?
It's not,
Yeah.
and yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's,
Of course.
That's what I figured. That there
Yeah,
were,
I mean, there's some charming characters in the
Yeah.
Nintendo world, and of course, people want to make games that use those characters. They think they have a great idea,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Hey, why don't we just get another?" And it's like, no,
Yeah.
not so much.
I remember
So-
talking to Adam Boyes when he was at Capcom, and the number of people coming to him and going like, I got the best Resident Evil game.
They're like, yeah.
That's never going to happen.
Did you have to mention Adam?
Legally,
Yeah.
yeah, legally once every 2 hours, his name is.
Yeah. Sorry, Adam.
So, I guess, do you ever see a situation or any type of evolution of this down the line where maybe that's not so crazy. Someone coming to you and saying like, hey, these characters, obviously Nintendo uses a lot of, Smash Brothers just this morning was just like, hey, here's every piece of IP we've ever made, with the exception of Birdo, but even Birdo's in there somewhere, and that sort of stuff. But do you ever see the potential? I know some other companies, I think, was it Square, had potentially said like, hey, maybe you can play around with some of our IP with some of these indie pitches and stuff like that. Do you ever see a world where maybe Nintendo would be open to at least hearing that out or building some kind of program?
Yeah, I think there's a path right now that internally where
oh sure,
you can
well,
do
it's
that.
just kind of it's
Right.
more of a
You
a different
just kind
pitch
of
at that
send
point,
it up
different
the
team
line,
sort of deal.
But I mean, with the success of these indie games, you never know what kind of collaboration is going to come about.
Right.
You never know if somebody from, our NCL office in Japan will say, "That's an amazing game. We want to get some characters in there," and they'll approach the developer.
Yeah, I mean, even just seeing like a Shovel Knight amiibo and stuff like that is like, okay,
Totally.
yeah,
It's all part of it,
There's
so.
all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
do you see a lot of people saying like, hey, we think there should be a Hollow Knight? Also, there should be a Hollow Knight amiibo.
Yeah.
I can pitch that.
Yeah. That's a terrible pitch, but yeah.
It'd be good. I'd buy one.
Yeah.
There, how's that?
There
There
you
you
go.
go. There's a business case.
Done.
All right, great.
Yeah, there's all kinds of that.
Yeah.
I think the more Nintendo goes out there and kind of has the amiibos and has all the great IP, the more people are going to want to kind of be involved with it.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
With Overcooked 2, it's such a hectic game that is really all about that type of close communication, and this has a proper online now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
yeah.
Online.
How has that changed? I know there's an emote button. Is that meant to be kind of a, hey, you need to wash these dishes sort of thing? Like, hey, you stop.
That's it.
Stop throwing the fish.
That's the most. It's not even the most minimal form of communication. I think like the most minimal form is if you're not using emotes and you're just sort of spinning in a circle angrily, trying to say you need to get here to the sink to wash some of these dishes. No, I think with the online aspect of it, it is definitely like local is obviously the most ideal way of playing because so much of it is about communication.
Right.
But we had so many people come to us and just sort of say, it's great. I obviously want to play it locally, but I have family members that live on the other side of the country, or I have family members that are like serving overseas, and we normally play games and we can't do this one together. So for us, I think that was the driving force. It was like, okay, well, yes, we would prefer, the way we prefer to play it is if we're in the same place and we can sort of push each other and shout, but there are people that don't have that opportunity, so let's try and make something that means they can still enjoy the game together.
Yeah, I think I'm largely in that boat when it comes to a lot of of games.
So obviously it is a different experience when you're playing over a headset, but it still works. Like still a big part of it is just the words you're using.
We've added like more layers of communication with the emotes, I think, just to make that easier, because we knew you lose some of the body language that you get.
So when you're all screaming at each other over headsets, you can't tell who's saying what, then at least somebody can just be like, I'm the person that needs the tomato, me right here,
Yeah, definitely. With Killer Queen, it seems like, there's a really big communication aspect to that, I would assume,
Oh,
too.
yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And, we've been working on, like, something similar to the emote thing. We're getting there. But I think there's just like a lot of complex behavior that you have to communicate really quickly. And it's just hard to do that with a button,
Right.
It is really difficult.
Yeah, I think it's an unsolved problem.
Yeah.
Like, I think we've solved it. I think it's like, we added something.
I think it's, it on both ends there are issues, because I think that, I've reached a point now after years of Xbox Live abuse and PlayStation, just
You don't like to get yelled at?
Yeah, I reached a point now where I'm just like, I'm just not going to wear a headset anymore. And I find myself playing with strangers more often than not, too. If I'm playing with friends, obviously, hey, you'll hop on Discord, we'll connect to whatever, and get in there and play. But I think the days of just, I'm going to see who's out there are kind of beyond me.
Yeah, but could you imagine playing Overcooked without talking? I mean, I can't.
Right.
I can't even imagine it.
Well, I mean, I have not used the emote button to very much. I just saw that it was in there this morning, so maybe that solves some of the issue. But yeah, I think that's a hard thing. But at the same time, as like a lot of competitive and cooperative indie games were getting popular, having that situation where like, oh man, I can't play any of these online. And that being this really big barrier to just like, oh, well, I can play this in the office and whatever, but once I get home, like, unless I can trick my wife into, playing something that she's usually not going to be that into. She's got her games, I've got mine.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit there and go like, well, I guess I just don't get to play much like Nidhogg 1, for example. Then Nidhogg 2 came along, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to go stab strangers in the face, and a whole world opened up to me.
Yeah, I think I've enjoyed that with Overcooked 2, as it feels like we've got two unique experiences. Like I do think that when you play a game locally, it's a completely different experience to when you play it online. But it's so nice now that we can cater to both of those.
Yeah, it's only possible because we've got a bigger team, I think, on Overcooked 2. I think if we were focusing, it's always local co-op for us, because local co-op's like the experience of like, it's just superior experience in some ways.
And then with the Switch, you can just yank those controllers off and just get it going.
You can play with people on the train. It's great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you manage to play, well, I guess actually with it being super secret, you probably did. I was gonna say, did you bust it out on the plane and play some? But that's everything leaks on planes and trains these days. So
terrified.
I actually played the first game with like I don't know, she was maybe 4 years old. Her mum was with her, and we were playing Overcooked 1, and she got about 30 seconds into it and was like, I have a cooking game on my iPad. It's much better than this. Fine, you win.
Cooking Mama is very popular.
Yeah.
There's some tremendous games. Do you still see a lot of interest from developers on the 3DS, or is it really kind of obviously?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's there are developers out there that love the 3DS and strictly want to make games for that.
Great.
And we allow them to do that. Right?
Yeah.
So it's great. It's 3DS is still doing really well.
Yeah, it's been just there's something about the dual screen format like that just works. With certain types of games, just really sing with that tool set.
Yep.
And yeah, it's I guess I'm asking because it didn't really get too much of a mention during the direct this morning. I think for the first time in a long time, there's no like little, hey, the 3DS. But I guess there's still new models coming to GameStop and stuff like that. So
absolutely. It's still very vibrant.
Still out there.
Yeah.
Making it happen. In
Definitely.
3D.
Yes.
And 2D.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I think I'm going to let you all go. I want to thank you so much for coming through. It has been awesome talking to you about this stuff. It's been fascinating seeing the Switch really kind of get into the game here with a lot of these a lot of indie games and stuff like that. And like I said, hearing early on, I was like, hey, they're a couple of whispery phone calls, like they're really going hard on indie over at Nintendo now. And I was like, really? Wow, okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
That's
weird.
That's not what I would necessarily expect, but I guess of course they are. Like you can't not.
Right.
That there's just so many developers out there, so many awesome games.
Well, also, it's the kind of, at the time, at the Switch release and before that, months before that, it's the shiny new thing. And
Totally.
A lot of indie devs love the shiny new thing, right? They'll tell you, it's like, oh, we've been churning on this PC build for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a new shiny new thing from Nintendo. Let's try to get in. So we appreciate that. And we're here to help.
Well, and it's, it seems like that shiny new thing, it seems like a lot of developers have been able to do quite well on the Switch.
Yes.
It's not just a matter of like, hey, putting these games out. It seems like there's a very genuine and real appetite for this type of content on the Switch.
Yeah, we were really happy early on to know that the porting of the games and the creation of the games happened. They're really able to iterate really quickly.
Yeah.
And get things on screen and get things running really quickly, and everyone was pleasantly surprised. So
4 hours.
4 hours for
4 hours.
4 hours.
To get from nothing to be on Switch.
To get nothing to getting it like not perfect, but running. Yeah.
Sure.
on screen
Wow.
and kind of controllable. So
Yeah.
we're happy to hear that, and it's fun.
All right. Well, I'm going to clean up my pitch here, this design doc.
Don't take out the S's. Though.
Yeah, you love
Okay,
the
yeah,
S's
well,
are awesome.
it's definitely the S's, and then I think that's
That's the key feature.
Kojima with the umbilical cord to Big Vegeta.
Right, yes.
Yes,
And-
that's good.
Is that like their
And then
future?
Cheetos are not chips.
I disagree with that, but that's, you know,
Okay.
the dock is pure and I'm not going to touch it.
That's a condition.
But we'll get that cleaned up.
Right.
Erase that part over there that's just disgusting. and I'll download a game maker and we'll get it going.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much for coming out, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Cheers.
very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
We'll be back shortly with some more guests. Stay tuned.